Welcome to Dead and Forgotten Gods. Hello, everyone. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ. Today is Tuesday, which means it's Level Up Advanced 5th edition as we take a look at this gaming system. It is one clone that's been around for about uh, 2 years-ish. Of a number of clones for the 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons system, which has been released in Creative Commons. And uh, this week we are doing a discussion, a creative endeavor, and talking about a very common trope in fantasy, which is adventuring in our tabletop games into the corpses of dead titanic beings and such, and kind of flavoring them. And I thought we would take a look at this being a bit of a shorter episode than normal. Let's take a look at Level Up 5th edition and see how they handle it. And let's we here are going to take a look at the Monstrous Menagerie, which is the monster book for Level Up 5th edition. Sly Flourish, his channel, he's really bullish on this book, and it is basically a monster book. And we're also going to take a look at the Trials and Treasures book, which is not just about treasure and magic items, but also about the fully developed exploration pillar and see what it has. Hey guys. Also, those who take place in the show live are the co-hosts here who help me look smarter than I am. All right, so let's see what we have here for our explanation. So uh, the page that I have um, ready for you guys is in the Trials and Treasures book, and in the Trials and Treasures book, excuse me, in the Trials and Treasures book, we have what are known as exploration encounters, and they are designed as with experience point levels. They are also designed to have the characters encounter them, but you can't solve it by hitting it about the head and neck with a sharp implement. You really need to have your players explore this. Now, there are other rules and intricacies about um, players using the journey rules, but in this is basically an environmental aspect, and you want your players to engage in it. Now, that environmental aspect could be very mundane, like a waterfall, a rope bridge, sandstorms, a dense jungle, um, pit traps, collapsing ceilings, and such. But to our very left here, we have ourselves a god corpse. And in terms of exploration, in terms of exploration, this is a very high tier level kind of thing. So all of the exploration challenges are organized by alphabetically, and then we also have them organized by tier level. And underneath the God Corpse, this is definitely a fourth tier supernatural encounter. And if I may, see to our left here, the skyline is broken by the massive, jagged silhouette of an impossibly enormous humanoid's rib cage. A shattered skull and massive femurs are embedded into the ground around it. Those with access to divine magic sense that some kind of action is needed. And underneath the tier 4 level in that description, we do have ourselves a challenge rating, which is 17, 18,000 experience points, and a DC level of 21/17. And this any activity that happens in and around these exploration challenges, you have a centralized DC, so that at least, even if you can let your players know this, you can kind of hide it, but there's no real reason to do so. You can let them know that navigating in and around and using those exploration skills is very difficult to navigate. And so and when I say navigate, using like your intelligence based skills, using your physical based skills and things of that nature. And then of course we have an area, and the area is immediate and less than an hour. That's usually a generalized time and space for your players who come upon this to avoid it or see it, or how long it should take them to maneuver around it or through this particular region. And underneath each of these, we do have some suggestions what your players may do, or a way to safely or maybe inappropriately navigate around it. So we do have aligned casting. When a spellcaster with the same alignment trait as the dead god casts a spell, roll 1d4. On a 1, the spell functions as intended, although with some harmless or unusual cosmetic effect. On a 2 to 3, the spell is absorbed into the corpse of the god. And on a 4, the spell's mechanical effects, such as hit points, restoration, damage dealt, or bonuses to attack, checks, and saving throws, are doubled, and the ground shakes with the remembrance of divine potency. So, of course, if there's some kind of other encounter happening, this has an effect in that area. We do have alignment. Roll a d6 to determine the dead god's alignment trait. On a 1 to 2, the god was evil. On a 3 or 4, the god was neither good nor evil. And on a 5 to 6, the god was good. And that's uh, a cumbersome line of a dialogue there, of literature there. Cause of death. An arcana or medicine check reveals the means of death. Roll a d4. On a 1, another god. On a 2, adventurers who perished in the battle. 3, a powerful non-god entity. And 4, something outside mortal knowledge entirely. And then we have our domains. Roll a d8 to determine the domain of the god before it fell. Locus of power. God corpse frequently draws out or errantly beckons certain creatures of up to challenge rating 10. What creatures appeared near the God corpse are determined by its alignment. For example, evil, you have fiends or undead. Neutral, you have aberrations or fae. And if it's good, it's celestials or plants. And then there's a nearby shrine. And so and mind you, you don't need to use any and all of this, but these are basically suggestions as to say, hey, you have a very high level adventuring group. You do want them to explore, but they can kind of fly and teleport basically around most obstructions. But in advanced fifth edition, A5E, we do have like discoveries and boons, and they may want to explore because they may gain some benefit from it. Social benefit, such as a contact or something, or a mechanical benefit, meaning they gather materials for spell casting. They might find a magic item, something like that. And then there's possible solutions. Religion check reveals that this is the corpse of a god, as well as its domain and its alignment. The check also reveals to the adventurers that they need to put the god to final rest by enacting appropriate rituals lasting for the day. I'm going to change this over to a single page shot here, if you don't mind. Boom, boom, boom. There we go. And then when you make these skill checks, there are also at least 4 outcomes: a critical failure, success, and critical success. And maybe just maybe a a solution and or benefit or penalty for having done that. Like, for example, under a critical failure, all adventurers suffer 2 levels of strife. For the next 5 or 2d4 days, each of the adventurers subtracts a die 4 whenever they make an attack roll or saving throw. In A5E, strife is like mental exhaustion. We have fatigue for physical exhaustion, and then strife for mental exhaustion. And then, of course, leave it be. Players are like, oh, dead god, let's go the other way. It says if the party abandons the god to its fate, their disregard offends its lingering essence, triggering a critical failure. So this is a tier 4 exploration. Basically, if they see it, hey, and they leave it alone, maybe not a good thing. Maybe they should solve the issue or at least discover it. Let's see what you guys have to say about it. All right. See, Z's like, yeah, but this is my topic, so I should stay at least. The Ant King says, good news, I became the warlock of an ancient god. Okay. Bad news, they're the god of wooden water wheels used in rivers. Metal wheels in lakes are different gods. So silly. Very, very, very specific. Slow clap there. Yeah, a little bit of clue there. This ancient titan got it from a candlestick. Back of the head. Look at that. Professor Plum in the library, right? I love it. All right, so this is just a small example of um It's just a small example of, I don't know, dozens and dozens, if not more, of in trials and treasures of encounter examples. But maybe you want to make up your own, or you have some encounters that you want to engage in, and the player characters are like, they're savvy, they've played this game for a long time, uh they know everything, but you want to create something different, you want to create something memorable. Well, uh there is a way to modify encounters pretty easily. Oh, did I get the wrong page? Please tell me I didn't get the Yes, I did. I sure did. I went too far. Planes and encounter design. I'm going to show you a very small part here for being able to modify challenge ratings. So, along with this, God corpse and exploring this God corpse, you probably want to add in some monsters and some background environmental effects in and around and inside of this God's corpse. In Level Up 5e, we have rules for that. So, along with challenge rating for monsters, we also are able to modify, based on your encounter building, the CR levels of monsters by including other aspects into the environment to make it the environment a little bit more difficult. And I did find the wrong page. I thought I had it. Yep. I wasn't too bright today. Here we go. All right. So right here in this page, um, we have ourselves a challenge rating increase table. And what this table allows you to do is, mathematically, we figured out, as if I did it, it has been mathematically figured out that if you add a number of these, one or more of these uh, environmental effects, it will increase the challenge rating of your encounter. So no matter what your encounter is, ghouls and goblins, aberrant creatures, boulets and fungi, and all those crazy kind of animals and monsters and creatures and sentients and goblinoids, you can increase these. And so we have here some examples that you can mix and match, so that if you want to have an adventure inside of the corpse of a dead god, as an example, you can use these. Anything from beginning here with acid and brown mold, darkness, and so on and so forth. Even things such as extreme heat and cold, if you want to have uh, use a lot of temperature variations, maybe in deep space or spell jamming or something like that. We even have green slime and high gravity, lava and low gravity, magnetized ore and memory crystals, and so on and so forth. And like I said, uh, a, a good examples of these, so that you can recontextualize them or kind of mix and match them to create an area around your encounter. So, for example, you have everything from vacuum to webs, yellow mold, and mire and ground poisonous plants, and so on and so forth, and an example of what they are. And so, what would happen is, if you have, let's say, you have some general goblinoids, right? And there's orcs, bugbears, or something, and you throw them into your game, you can add in things like maybe they've made camp around some kind of magnetized ore, or they live inside of the femur of the god corpse, and they live around like green slime and yellow mold. Or there's a dense jungle, and you want to have things like uh, you want to have a large pool of water, so you include an underwater element, and then maybe you also add some poisonous plants into this jungle, and maybe it's a rainforest, so there's some heavy participation. Wow, precipitation. There, if you have a waterfall, you also have a falling effect. You can add some of that in there, and all of a sudden now you have an encounter, but the players and the adversaries may use this to their benefit, or it could be to their detriment as well. Kicking somebody off the top of a waterfall. The rain could put out the fires of the pyromancer. The thick miring ground could be um, keeping people from maneuvering around on the battlefield, and so on and so forth. So I thought I would show that to you as well. So if you really did want to have an adventure inside of a dead god and level up, A5E is your thing, you can have this. And of course, we have the mechanical effects, everything from crowds and darkness. Crowds is kind of cool too. Maybe we'll get into that another day. But darkness, extreme heat and cold, dense smoke, which is different than say fog or something, cause choking effects and such. We got green slime, heavy precipitation, fires, of course, frigid waters, high gravity, that kind of thing. All right, memory crystals in vacuum. Let's see what vacuum has to say. Um, Vacuum. An area of vacuum has no air, so creatures that need to breathe must use another source of air or begin to suffocate once they cannot hold their breath. In addition, the area carries no sound, so hearing-based checks made to perceive automatically fail, and spells with vocalized components cannot be cast. A creature with its own air supply may cast spells with vocalized components, but still cannot hear. Vacuum is also utterly chilling, dealing 11 or 3d6 cold damage to a creature at the start of each of its turns in the area. It's kind of cool. And then here we have rushing liquid. Definitely rushing liquid. Everything from raging rivers to waterfalls. The liquid doesn't necessarily need to be water, but it sure would be less dangerous than any other thing, like I don't know, rushing lava, rushing acids, or things of that nature. Or it could be the I don't know, the punctured spleen of the dead god, and the fluid rushes out of it or something like that. Let me see what you guys have to say before we get on to the other thing. The End King says, imagine a dead god making up the bulk of a continent, and bringing them to life destroys this landmass. Hope the players are prepared for floods. Yeah, having it raise up. Hey, does anybody remember? Remember way back in the day, there was this Marvel movie called um the Eternals, that had, oh, I don't know, a celestial, the birthing of a celestial god that woke up like in the Indian Sea, reaching up into the a mountainous individual reaching up into the atmosphere. Anybody remember that? Anybody? Anybody? Well, anyway, this is kind of that thing, and it would be interesting for the players to like, okay, well, here's the deal. Um, we have to resurrect the dead god, but if we do, all the people living on it are going to die, or it could be someone wants to resurrect it and they have to keep it asleep or something, or bring back its 5-ton crystalline uh a physical manifestation of its soul and take it off to somewhere else or something. And yesterday, remember, we talked about like maybe it wants to give birth, or this is a cycle or something. Yeah. Zamar says the airs that move this world come from this cave, the cave from which all souls spring. I love it. You're always a wordsmith. The Inn King says rushing blood in its veins. That could be a hurdle. Yes, absolutely. Hell's yes. Hell yeah. Thank you, Z. Yeah. Don't. I didn't even bother watching Eternals, honestly. Well, you're the better for it. It's actually not that bad. It's just it's very what is it? A milk toast. It's like yeah, it's not very memorable, and it's not memorable. It doesn't matter. Some of the characters are a bit flat. So yeah. So one says also that sounds like uh, a Azathoth scenario. If they wake or if they die, we are all screwed. Yeah, yeah. Which do you choose, right? Do you awaken? Do you awaken the corpse of the dead god, not even knowing its purpose in life, right? Well, you could discover its domain and its alignment, but even if it's a good one, if there's people living on this landmass and it awakens and kills thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, is that a good thing? Is it the sacrifice of those people to bring back the dead god to, I don't know, fight some evil or something? And then others would say, hey, we're going to try to bring it to life, and the PCs are like, nah, we're not going to let that happen, right? I think there could be a third option as well. So allow me to show you. Let's see. Let's go to the Monstrous Menagerie. Now, that was a Trials and Treasures book. Um, we need to go to the monstrous menagerie, and it won't let me automatically switch over. So we are going to show my dumb head and then stop sharing. And then we are going to then, hmm, hmm, and let's share this out. And then I wish I wasn't a Luddite. Here we go. All right. All right. Uh, Ouch. Yeah, milk toast like Shang-Chi. I was actually mad after watching it. That's an hour and a half of my life I'll never get back. Hey, listen, I'm a movie fanatic. If I wasn't doing this, I'd be doing movies and yeah, you are not wrong. So this is the double page spread in the monstrous menagerie. And we are taking a look at a forgotten god. Forgotten might not necessarily be dead, but we're going to take a look at this. So um, there's a number of bits and bobbles and pieces here, um, as expressed in the monstrous menagerie when it comes to monsters. So of course we have the title, and then as we go through the title, we have ourselves a bit of fluff, some information here, and the design team tried to go out of their way to throw some dangling threads into the fluff. So don't just ignore it. There is some information in here that you could use that is tries to be inspirational to make you think outside the box, essentially. But as we go past the fluff area, the information, we do have legends and lore, and legends and lore section is um, if the player characters use particular skills, usually knowledge based, or almost always knowledge based of sorts, religion, arcana, history, etc. They learn some detail about this particular monster or something. Now, they may not even be, your players may not even be inspired to roll these, but they may roll them based on encounters with other people in the region, other monsters, creatures, NPCs. And then we have the Forgotten God encounters. There's already mathematically figured out encounter table, including treasures and other monsters that might be around, and it's already set up for you. We next, the third part, or actually fourth part, we have signs. So if the players, if you are doing this randomly, or you in your head, you're like, oh, I'm stuck for an encounter, I don't know what I'm going to do. They don't just make a left turn and bump into a forgotten god. What happens is there's usually signs and other things around to warn the players of what's coming up. Now they may misinterpret the signs here, but whatever. Then we have behaviors, behavior of the monster. Now that monster might not even care about the PCs, or it could be, if it's a bestial monster, it could be eating or hunting or hibernating or something like that. If it's sentient, it has its own agendas. Some of these agendas are divergent from what the players want, or there might be some alignment so that the players may have a way to socially, have some kind of parity or diplomacy with the monster or creature. And then we have a Forgotten God's appearance, and then all of the stats. So let us let's go to a single pager and then zero in. Here we go, Forgotten God. Let's see what you guys have to say first before we get into this. Yeah. The End King says this isn't nearly on the same level as a dead god, but I'm reminded of Statue of Liberty from Ghostbusters 2. Yeah, yeah. Imagine the day after, and this broad is just in the street. Yeah, just sitting there. You know what? I'd love to see like the aftermath of some of these events and things, right? Like, what was it? I mean, heck, the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man exploded. That's a lot of s'mores to have to like clean up all that mess, right? Uh, Zamora says, I'm probably going to complete my promise today and buy A5E. My group moved over to it, and it's a chance to support my local gaming store. Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah. Um, and I think anything uh, notably kaiju level and above kind of fits into this trope. So here we go. Forgotten God. Deities rarely die, but their followers do. A god with few or no worshippers retains only a shred of its former glory. Its remaining powers are undependable, and its mind is weakened. Many forgotten gods, whatever their former nature, are now insane, evil, or hungry for worship. Forgotten gods take any form a mortal mind can imagine, whereas one god might look human, another might possess an animal's head and multiple limbs, or adopt the form of an enormous anthropomorphic snake. And the three titles here for under its um, details are like shreds of sovereignty. Even the dregs of divinity make a forgotten god dangerous. It still commands tremendous martial and magical power and is imbued with such heavenly splendor that it remains stunning to behold. Divine weapon. Every forgotten god carries with it a weapon or implement, such as a trident, shovel, lightning bolt, or spinning wheel, that symbolizes its former divine role. That could also be a symbol of maybe a cult or worshippers that carry a symbol of that. Regardless of the type of item, the god can use it as a weapon. Most divine weapons deal bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing damage, depending on their form, but a lightning bolt, for instance, deals lightning damage. We have resurrection, a forgotten god that garners enough worshippers, regains its old power. Many all but abandoned gods still have small cults dedicated to spreading their deity's fame and restoring its place in the heavens. And again, this doesn't necessarily need to be something evil, but sure, why not, right? You got to have some cultists. And lastly, divine nature, a forgotten god doesn't require air, sustenance, or sleep. And then we have the legends and lore with the history or religion check. With a DC 15, the gods with few or no worshippers live on as a shadow of their former selves. Forgotten gods may be insane or starved for worship and are usually very dangerous. And a DC 20 check, though fallen, forgotten gods retain much of their divine power. They wield mighty magic, and even their gaze is enough to freeze weak-willed mortals in their tracks. It would be interesting for player characters to garner the favor of one of these forgotten gods in a like, hey, I'll do the godling, the deity, or demigod, or whatever you want to call them. Um, ask of the PCs like, hey, do this for me. I'll grant you power if you restore me. And the PCs, whether they're uh, liars or not, go, yeah, we'll help you out. And then here we have god encounters, forgotten god encounters. The gods usually hide or lie dormant in deep dungeons in ancient temples. And a CR 11 to 16 encounter includes forgotten god with cult fanatic and 1d6 plus 4 cultists, or a forgotten god with 1d4 plus 2 grimlocks or troglodytes, or a forgotten god with 2 or 3 priests. And so just use the monsters menagerie, open it up, and then there's already a stats for a number of these creatures. Grimlocks is pretty interesting because Grimlocks tend to be blind, and that would be pretty interesting because that would mean that they are not affected by looking upon the face of one of these godlings. Troglodytes, kind of smelly. Maybe it's a, a deep underworld godling or something. And who knows? The forgotten god doesn't necessarily have to like its worshippers. It could be a one-way street on that one. So we have signs such as like chanting cultists, or a pool or wall of silver liquid, an ancient altar or statue with unfamiliar symbols, maybe a black door covered with wax seals bearing runes of abjuration, a pedestal in which nothing remains but a pair of massive feet, or an eroded bas relief depicting a forgotten myth. And so these are just some signs that are in or around. There's some behaviors, like it's insane and wishes to end all life, or demands you to worship it or be destroyed. Pretty common one right there. Believes it's at the height of its power thousands of years ago. If you flatter it grants you a boon. Yep. Flattery gets you everything, including experience points. Demands you utter foul blasphemies, cursing your former gods and worshiping it from now on. It could have a broken mind. Each round it alternates between good and evil alignment. Nasty there. Or it's weeping as it mourns the fallen empires that once worshipped it. Looking at you, X-Men, not Days of Future Past, the other one. The, the third terrible one. We do have appearance Traits like a snake deity or wolf-headed goddess or green-skinned stag-headed god or crab-headed entity, maybe an armless goddess or a fat clay god who holds his severed head in one hand, or maybe even a pillar of purple flame. So it doesn't need to be humanoid. And then the challenge rating. Now, surprisingly, the challenge rating on this is just 10, but that's because um, it could be the player characters at 14th level are well more powerful than a Forgotten God, which is why they want to gain their power back. Of course, it has armor class, hit points. We've talked about this about the bloodied condition. I'm not sure if this has if the bloodied condition gives or takes away some of its capabilities, but we'll take a look at it. And then for martial maneuvers, it does have a martial maneuver DC over here. How big is it? Considered a legendary large celestial. All right, here we go. Does have include spirit guardians. Some people hate that spell, but does have automatic spirit guardians. It various alignments, lawful and good, chaotic and good, lawful and evil, or chaotic and evil. Flawed spell casting. Mm-mm-mm. The god can try to cast Flame Strike or Spirit Guardians at will with no material components. When the god tries to cast a spell, roll a d6. On a 1, 2, or 3 on the die, the spell visibly fails and has no effect. The god's action for the turn is not wasted, but it can't be used to cast a spell. Legendary Resistance. And again, this is challenge rating 10, so it kind of has a built-in limitation. We do have some actions like a Divine Weapon, Stunning Gaze, Divine Wrath once a day while bloodied. And again, here we go. Yep. So if you get it down to 80 hit points or less, it does now has this ability. Spirit Guardians, and then Flame Strike. And then some legendary actions as well, such as Float or Smite or Stunning Glance. And then in combat. And sometimes these are like combat tactics, like what it'll do. For example, on its turn, the Forgotten God prefers flawed spellcasting, surrounding itself with Spirit Guardians, or blasting creatures with Flame Strike. It tries to be within 10 feet of an enemy so it can attack with its divine weapon if the spell fails. It uses Divine Wrath when available. The god reserves its legendary actions for Stunning Glance unless most targets have already made their saving throw against it. Kind of cool. And it's, to me, like story wise, I'd make like Spirit Guardians, like maybe some of its old followers, or give some other information as to how it can work. Here we go. Let's go back to Z. Let's see what you have to say here, Z. Mm-mm. Everybody. I missed a lot. Mm-mm. Now, Zamar says the cyclical nature of deities dictate that they be forgotten as they butt heads. More popular gods falling out of favor with their followers or followers of Lost and Holy Wars. Yeah. The End King says a forgotten god's favor might be very difficult to get. Imagine a tribute involving a flower or the sacrifice of an animal that's been gone for 2,000 years. I like that kind of thing, right? Like, bring me the tear, bring me the I don't know, bring me the bottled truth from a fiend or something, right? Bring me the tear uh, of an aberrant creature or whatever. Bring me the poem of a dead poet that lived 2,000 years. Like it might be something that you really can't, that doesn't even have a physical component to it, like an action, or like you said, an animal, a sacrifice of an animal has been going for 2,000 years. I'm looking at you, druids, always trying to change into T-Rexes, right? No more dinosaurs. You're like, I brought a bone. And the godling's like, you offend me? I want to triceratops. They're my favorite. But absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Like, what if the tribute's a flower, and that flower only, a blue rose that only, on the top of a mountain top, frozen mountain top, that only happens once a year, or once every 1,001 days or something. That'd be kind of cool. Zamar says, but the signs of their worship is harder to stamp out than their worshippers. Okay, eventually someone stumbles upon the ways of the long forgotten deity, an event that will forever change them. Yes, and considering that it's a challenge 10, because you would think that this would be top tier level, right? Like Tarask or something. But you could technically have a forgotten god start walking the earth and causing trouble, and the player characters are, it's like taking care of a small child in a way. Like, listen, you've got to stop doing this, right? Like, come on, Thor is summoning lightning bolts and going into random, taverns and getting drink and stuff, and the forgotten god's like, I want more drink, come on, follow me, and the PCs are like, oh man. So you could have one, or one of the godlings or something show up, maybe combine the forgotten god, and the PCs need to corral this individual that's causing trouble, to bring it to the corpse of the corpse god, which we just talked about, and maybe them together, maybe they are combined together, or they were a paired group, maybe they were twins or married, or they are the split, one killed the other one and is in utter remorse or something, or whatever, or maybe it might be the beginning of a brand new war. One of the forgotten god has killed the other one near the god corpse, and it's like sitting there just waiting for it to come back or whatever. The Yanking says, that's interesting. Troglodytes praying to a god of death with a fearsome scythe, but it's a god of wheat. Yeah, gaining power from this worship, but not satisfied at all. Right? Yeah, the troglodytes are, you're here for me, and the god's like, oh, would you go away? You're like ants. Please stop. Zamara says cults of a forgotten deity should be careful. While they give great powers in their weakened state, when they awaken, it's like a man from a drunken stupor after having lost an imaginary fight. Yeah, they just start swinging. Yeah, I remove the dagger from the heart of the dead god. The forgotten god or something, and the forgotten god like awakens, and it's like, no, starts swinging at people, thinking that the fight's still going on. Heck, you don't need to actually have one. You could have more of them. This could be a giant battlefield of, like, well, technically they're large, but they could be like Titan-sized beings and such. And I mean, if you combine this with like a classic like Greek or Roman style thing, this could be the rise of the Olympian gods after taking down the Titans with the help of Zeus and everybody else. And the PCs are like all involved in it or something, or your own. As an example, using um, your own pantheon. This might be the decision point. This might be this transition from one group to the next, or maybe the PCs come upon the edge of the world where the seasons change from like spring to summer, summer to fall, and this is what happens. Zamar says their rising may be more violent for the world than intended, usually for the worshippers, and no one likes to be awakened from a pleasant sleep for a petty matter such as a wish for daily rain. Yeah. What did you wake me up for? We need rain for our crops. The forgotten god's like, what? You woke me up for that? So what? Your people are. There's been droughts for 3 years. I've been asleep for 2,000. And I've been pretty happy. The King says, what if the physical, literal origin of the world changes depending on who you pray to, like a giant Schrodinger's cat situation? Yeah, it doesn't exist until you see it, or some. Yeah. Oh no, I don't mind that. Yeah. that that needs to be a T-shirt. I am still half awake and at the whims of my fluctuating epiphanies. I love it. I love it. So anyway, guys, I wanted to just show this off to you, just to see what you guys would think of it. There we go. Forgotten God, uh, Monstrous Menagerie, Advanced Fifth Edition. We also have the Trials and Treasures book. Again, very different. Each of these creatures. I went. Ooh, we. I'm going to page down to. I'm going to look for some troglodytes. 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 There we go. And let's go to you. Let's see what you, let's, because I haven't seen them in a while. I haven't seen them in like forever and ever. Okay, all right, all right. I know they're the stinky, the stinky cousins to like lizard folk, if I remember what they looked like. Um, yeah, descendants of an ancient subterranean culture beset by calamity. Troglodytes. Okay, turn you off. Troglodytes somewhat resemble lizard folk, at least to the extent that Grimlocks resemble humans. Troglodyte encounter. Let's see. Divided people, rich odors. Oof, they always exuded a stench. Bite can infect others with a sickening stench. Legends and lore. Ancient culture long ago corrupted by demonic influences. Sickening stench. Sickening stench troglodytes emit is transferred via their bite. Odor is difficult to remove. Enclaves of troglodytes untouched by demonic corruption exist in the deepest reaches of the underlands. Troglodyte cultist behavior, driving a stumbling, retching prisoner before them, or chewing gobbets of rotting flesh, scrawling disturbing pictographs, lounging in filth, pleasantly satisfied after a horrific feast, crunching bones and licking blood from the floor, laying siege against a peaceful troglodyte enclave. Uh, um, Notice there are no alignments for these monsters in the Monsters Menagerie. Foul smell, pictographs on walls, behavior, scouting for a larger group, etc. And let's go to their physical stats. We even have names, some example names. I didn't see example names for Forgotten Gods. Troglodyte, 19 hit points, bloodied when they're down to 9 hit points. Challenge rating 1/2. Yeah, medium humanoids. Disease. And the disease is known as troglodyte stench. And they carry stench and sunlight sensitivity. Side note, sorry. The disease troglodyte stench could actually be on other NPCs or encounter individuals. So this might lead to the troglodytes, which leads to the Forgotten God. So that you might find a group of people that are maybe untouchables or driven outside of a community or trying to figure out a cure for it or something like that. Anyway, it's a not bad picture. Multi attack, bite, dart. Troglodytes throw darts and then attack with bite and claws. They prefer to attack enemies that are not inflicted with troglodyte stench. They retreat if reduced to half their number or if exposed to sunlight. That little bit, they prefer to attack enemies that are not inflicted. So it might be that if the, if one or more of the player characters are infected with the disease, the troglodytes might sniff them and think that they are one of them. If you want to make them mindless, I think their intelligence is human like intelligence 10, so they're not going to be fooled that per se by your appearance, but they may think that you're part of, like, maybe you're convinced that you're part of like slaves or something or part of a ceremony, and the troglodytes sort of, go ahead, past, yeah, you're worthless bums and that kind of thing. You can see here next to stealth +3 that they gain a +1d6, and that's probably because of they get an expertise, or actually probably um, it's a double expertise for being stealthy, probably in the Underdark. I would say they probably gain expertise because of their camouflage skin, and darkness probably gives them the extra plus uh, 2 levels of where they get it from, starting at a D4 and then bumped up to a D plus D6. So let me go down here and then we'll say goodbye. This image up here, see what you guys have to say. Um, Petrified body or elementals. Ooh, ooh. Hey, Mike. Zamar says in my or Korok or Korok. In my Orchoric world, the world is a cycle of rebirth. All right. Um, I've been toying with the idea of the rebirth being caused by gods accidentally waking a greater god with their arguments and warring. That's a thing too, right? You don't need to have all of your dead, forgotten, paralyzed, stasis induced gods don't need to be on the same level. Even in the amongst the classic, you know, Olympian Rome Olympian gods, they weren't the same levels. They had different caste levels and power levels, deities and demigods and things like that. Get it? Deities, demigods. I think it's cool that you have it as an encounter option. Actually, I like that you've got a healthy amount of non-combat encounters. The design team went out of their way to try to make it so that not it's not turn corner roll initiative, right? It's maybe we can parlay or deceive or sneak around or something like that. Yeah. And King says, only so many times you can encounter an orc raiding party on the same road. Exactly. Exactly. And it just when I showed off like, mixing things like heights and weights and hot and cold and oozes and plants and things like that, you can even uh, take it and mix it in that way as well to make the environment have an effect as well. Mike says, so if we're talking about things that may live within the buried remains of the body of a dead god, may I suggest non-humanoids? Yep. Example, the former bodily fluids are now oozes. Yeah, yeah, hells yeah. Of course, of course. Petrified body or elementals, absolutely. Absolutely. Heck, a brain, the the opened organ, which is the brain of a dead god, could be like spouting out flaming and elemental electrical elementals and things like that just randomly. Yeah. Mm-mm-mm. Zamar says, I feel a good new school encounter table should have at least 2 0 nothing happened moments and 1 to 3 explorer finding landscape landmarks moments. That actually, we actually have that here. To be honest with you, that already does exist. Let me see if I could. I'm going to attempt to find it. Let's see, Trials of Treasures. I'm going to attempt to find this behind the scenes. Okay, past the God Corpse and go into our let's do a 2-page spread and let's see if we can find this here. Mm-mm-mm. Adventure rewards for boons and discoveries. We also have gotta have treasures and such, but we're going to go past all of that. Orbs. No, trials and treasures. That's destroying artifacts, crafting magic items. Mm-mm-mm. Mm-mm-mm-mm. There we go. What is a good God Corpse region that we can do? Rolling grasslands? No, I don't think so. Open roads, mountains, frozen wastes. I know fiery hellscape? Hmm. Let's pick something else. All right, let's go with Feywood, just as an example. All right, so let's see. We want to share this. Da, 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 da. Let's share this part. All right. So right here, this is a 2-page spread in the Trials and Treasures book, and and this is the Feywood. Now, there's a number of these. It's like uh, most of your mundane encounter regions and then a bunch of arcane ones, meaning like swamps, mountains, volcanoes, different names of frozen regions and such. And the encounter tables are start out at tier 0 and they go up to 2 on the very left here. left bottom ish. It's tier 0, and it goes all the way up to tier 4 tables. So they are modified by tier. They are cultivated by region. So this would be a Feywood. We this is a whole nother live stream where we go into like terrain, tier, weather, natural camouflage, and other types of details about the specific region and journey activities. But if we go over here to tier 1, this is levels 1 through 4. We have an encounter and then the type of encounter. And next to the type of encounter, there are basically 3 types. You have MNST, which is monster. We have EXPL, which is exploration. So exploration might just be, for example, um, we have Awakened Tree, Bandit Captain, and a Bridge of Stones. Okay, it's a bridge of stones, and you can look that up in the book for exploration encounter. Is there something living under it? Maybe if the PCs go underneath the bridge, they find something. It could be a great place to hide from, excuse me, torrential rain. It might be hidden in fog when they try to cross the bridge, etc. And then we have here travel scenery. Go to page 105, and there's just travel scenery. Maybe there's a detail about your world. I've always said taverns are a microcosm of your travel. Is exactly like a tavern, and a tavern is a microcosm of your world. So all the extraneous elements of your world building, you should be able to find most of that in your taverns. People talking about the politics, the economics, the monsters in the area, the dangers, maybe some of the nice things, people who are famous, blah blah blah. All the words, people gossiping in a tavern. It's a microcosm. Exploration. You want to describe, you did all this work on your world building. Let your PCs know what your world is about. So travel scenery lets them know. So we do have monster encounter, exploration encounter, travel scenery, and then there's, let's see if we can get one with a um, social encounter. There is a, let's see if I can see. Don't see it, but anyway, in every one of these monster encounters, like green hag monster encounter, doesn't mean that you roll initiative, turn the left corner and roll initiative, right? It's look up the monster, and then we have sights and behaviors and things like that. So there's lots of examples of not automatically making it a combat encounter. Now, it doesn't mean it can't turn into one either now or later. I mean, if the PCs encounter a if the PCs encounter a green hag and she's like, I don't want to die, and their PCs are like, we don't want to fight, and then there's some kind of exchange words or even materials or something, that green hag could absolutely sell that information to somebody else or something. So that's just an example, and you can use these to reframe each one of these. Like these are all 2-page spreads. There we go. We start out with Blasted Badlands, and then we move on from there. Blasted Badlands and Country Shire, Feywood. There's a Fiery Hellscape one, Flowing River, Frozen Wastes. Sorry, Haunted Lands. Got to have some undead spirit lands or something. Lofty Mountains, Parched Sands. You know, I would rename it the Accursed Desert, but whatever. Restless Sea, Rolling Grasslands, Tangled Forests, etc. Underland Realm, blah blah blah. So you guys get it. So let's go with a piece of artwork above my head before we get out of here. Oh, did I even share it? I sure didn't. Well, thank you guys. Oh, mm-mm-mm. Mike Barron says a tavern is a microcosm of your world. Is very handy. Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Tangled farts. Yes, very much so. Like the reason for this is my reason for having the classic tavern. It's not just a safe space, but it's also a way to tell your um to express to your players your world in a microcosm. So I don't know. dwarven miners complaining about the dangers of the troglodytes down in the mine. Who there's another table with elven emissaries and diplomats, drinking, elven wine in the corner, talking about the political ramifications of the changing of the nobility or something. And then and the barkeep has a weapon above the table, and it says, "Oh, that's not the real magic sword. The real one is long gone, but it's an example. No one's been able to find it. Some say it's still in the crypt of the forgotten king, and it's a great way in very short, succinct bullet points, let your players know when you're here. This lets you know everything around it, and if they decide to engage. Now, your PCs might just be murder hobos, in which case you can kind of, I hate to say this, Pavlov's dog them. Basically go like, basically let your players know, like, yeah, you don't have to engage, but here's what's happening. Mike's like, yeah, cursed desert. I always say it. It's the thing. It's a drinking game. Mm-mm-mm. Zamar says, imagine finding a broken wagon surrounded by the corpses of 3d6 dead bodies, 1/8 of which are armored. You notice that one of the bodies leaned up against the wagon is breathing weakly and bleeding heavily. They stir when you approach and say, "Oh, more of you? Yeah, more of you came? Come at me then. I will defend her with my life." He starts to stand but collapses, passing back. Yep. The DM decides, how would I run it? There is no her around, or several hers scattered between the armored and unarmored dead. Right? Yeah. Like, what's going on? What the hell's happening? Who knows? Right? What are the answers? How do you handle that situation? How do the player characters handle it? Is this person defending her good or bad? Or maybe the person defending her is good, but the her was like an evil hag in the form of a princess of some sort. Who knows? Tangled farts. I don't know how you tangle some farts, but funny. Crawling brambles, a region of thorny vines. Mm-mm-mm. What is this constitutional monarchy? It's either a monarchy or it isn't. Oh man. All right. Well, anyway, guys, we've come to the end. I'm going to slowly start making some of these a little bit shorter. I feel like I'm taking a little bit too much of your time. Tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday, we'll keep getting into designing this for, forgotten, dead, far distant realm, whatever, god or godling or something, using our body systems as an example. There's some more details that I think you always discover these things after these shows end. So there's more details about that as well. But again, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I really appreciate you guys being here. Thank you very much for just being part of the show. Mm-mm-mm. Undead saints and go. Yeah. Are they dangerous because they're undead, or are they saints because they are dead? Anyway, guys, I'll see you guys later. Have a great one. Peace.